Hi, Bobby. How are you today?
Doing all right, Jane. How are you?
Very, very good. Right, I've got a bone to pick with you this week. Eccentric Darwinism. Everyone will have read about it in part one of your blog. Now, you've actively been content manager for PT on the Net. Um, you've worked very heavily in the National Academy of Sports Medicine. You were a co-founder also of PTA Global. And all of these organisations are educators and they almost dictate what instructors and fitness professionals should think, say and do. Yet, in eccentric Darwinism, you're saying that only the weird survive, that our individual characteristics and what makes us really, are the important things, which I've got to say I love, absolutely love, and it's a message that I'm really trying to get across to everyone that subscribes to Group X training. So can you just please explain yourself?
Well, it sounds like a bit contradictory, doesn't it? But
Slightly.
I think Mark Twain said, I never let my schooling get in the way of my education. And there's a big difference between education and institutionalization. And
Right.
education is derived from the Latin word educo or educere, which translates to draw out or lead out. So education isn't necessarily what we put in, but what we extract from someone. But in order to extract something, there needs to be a baseline of understanding. People need the basics. People need mental models. People need systematic mediums by which they go about solving problems. Because in our industry, in every industry, what you know is irrelevant. It's the advantage, the solution, the experience that it provides the end user with that dictates your utility and value within the marketplace. So, yes, I've been involved in educational organizations. Let's take PTA Global in its original formula and examine that. PTA Global started 10,000 foot above sea level at a place called Keystone, Colorado. There was an event put on by PT on the Net called Meeting of the Minds, and the founder of PT on the Net, Richard Boyd, got nearly 24 of the top presenters and educators in the industry together to discuss for 20 minutes the most cutting edge research that they were working on. And what was interesting about this group of people is many of them passionately disagreed with one another. So we thought, oh my God, there's going to be a lot of fighting, and I don't know, maybe that'll make for a great show, but how do you control it? And we got to keep people on point and try to prevent this from happening. And what we saw happen was some of the top people, again, nearly 24 of the world's best, come together and listening to each other. They started taking notes on one another, and they got to the point where they concluded we all have different information, or most of them did. I don't think everybody came to this conclusion, to be fair. But our vision is the same.
Right.
See, great things are achieved when great visions unite. And that's what happened. Everybody had divergent pieces of information because the context and their background was very different. However, they all realized that the divergent pieces of information and expertise all converged to helping make people's lives better. So we put together this company trying to expose people to a way that they don't get confused, where they go to one person's education, then they go to another person's education, then they get really confused about this person saying one thing, but this person's saying another thing, and we know that confused people either do nothing,
Yeah.
or confused people become fanatical about information, not application, and that's what adds to my guru can kick the living snot out of your guru,
I'm with
and
you.
this industry divides into functional silos. So we wanted to give a structured application for the end user or the student, the delegate, to be exposed to all of these brilliant minds. And what we encouraged people to do was make their own decisions at the end and go their own path. So they would come into us with the intention that we would help them leave us by coming to conclusions not based on what we say, but through their own volition.
Right.
I think it was Dr. Martin Luther King who said that the hope of a secure and viable world lies with the disciplined nonconformist who are dedicated to justice, peace, and brotherhood. Now, we're not dedicated to justice, peace, and brotherhood, although we have no issue with that. But what we are dedicated to is the disciplined non-conformist. Because let me go back to your original comment about this, organization that tells you what to think and what to learn. Up until the 19th century, there was no such thing as schooling. There was universities, but there wasn't a systematic, organized process so where the masses can go in and get an education. Now, what happened in the 19th century that made it a necessity to form schooling? Well, it was social reform for the betterment of mankind. No, it was the birth of the industrial age. And what we needed was a workforce who was smart enough to understand the tools and the skills and the resources to turn the screwdrivers, make the gears run, and mobilize the industrial machine. That's what happened. And then we bought into traditional wisdom. In school, not only were all of our interests and unique insights discouraged, but if it didn't map with what we were told we should be like, it was stigmatized. How many times does a kid say something to mom and dad like, oh, when I grow up, I want to be a musician, and mom and dad have a heart attack and say, no, you can't follow that. There's no security in that. You want to go to school and get very good grades, because if you get good grades, you can get a good job with a pension, and then you can go to work on the 40-40-40 plan. And the 40-40-40 plan is I get to work 40 hours a week for the next 40 years on 40% of what I want to live on in the first place, and I hope that at least 40%, if I'm lucky, of my talents and my passions are utilized, so I don't want to commit suicide and hang myself at my desk somewhere around Wednesday, Thursday. God, let me make it through quiet desperation to Friday, so Saturday and Sunday I earn the right to load the kids into the minivan and do something fun until I become a pensioner at 65 and die of cancer at age 75.
Okay.
Imagine turning on the radio and thinking, what would have happened if every musician, what about every neuroscientist, what about every quantum theorist, if they would have followed that advice, be reasonable, there's no money in what you're doing, don't become a writer, what would our world look like and feel like today? We'd have a bunch of accountants and not very much enrichment, not discrediting the role of accountants.
Of course, where would we be without them? Let me ask you something then, because I suppose as fitness instructors or fitness professionals, we almost fall into that category of people, don't we? That your parents would say, no, there's no security in it. It's not a proper job, because it's only been a proper job of recent development. And yes, we are also victim of an industry that's so new that we've got organising or governing bodies that are telling us you have to do this and making rules for us. We've also got our peers creating knowledge or perceived ways forward for us. And then we've got a lot of people in the middle, actually the industrialists, as you said, the people who are making the wheels turn, making the nuts and bolts on the ground level, who are a little bit confused right now, and they perhaps feel like the weirdos, when in fact the message I want to get across, if you just stop looking laterally, down, up and around you, and look at what you've got and what you do, and express your weirdness in your own weird way to the own weird people that come to you, you're actually in a little gold mine of commercial success, really.
Well, Jane, first of all, I think there is a purpose that's fulfilled by governing bodies. I don't think governing bodies are a problem. I think you need standardization, you need duplication, absolutely. But make no mistake about it, if you are a group exercise instructor, you are quite weird. There is nothing normal about you. If you're a personal trainer, you are weird. You have chosen to not come in and work in a traditional industry. It's not something mom, dad, or maybe your peers would have endorsed. It's not something that's secure with paid holiday. you're very weird. You're nothing even close to normal. But
Yeah.
ask yourself, do you want to be normal? How many of you want to have a job? Job is an acronym for just over broke. And I'm not just talking about being just over broke financially. I'm talking about being just over broke spiritually and emotionally.
Yeah.
Because there is nothing worse than resigning yourself to the fact that I will trade my freedom, my creativity, my passion, and my innate talents, and therefore my unique contribution for a paycheck, paid holidays, and a pension that is absolutely pathetic.
Yeah.
So if you're not normal, congratulations, because
Right.
maybe there's hope for some of us in this industry.
I hope so. I mean, you're talking to someone who's, in their 40s now, and I've never had a job. I've never had someone pay my way. And sometimes when I meet people now, it's because a lot of my friends are industry based. It's so different a perception of our lives, and I would not trade it for anything. Anything. If this is weird, I love it.
Well, listen to this. Back in 1973, there was a guy by the name of Gordon Moore. And if you have a PC, right, and not a Mac, you have a sticker on your computer that says Intel inside.
Uh-huh.
Now, Gordon Moore was the founder of Intel Corporation, and he said something that was ludicrous. George Bernard Shaw said that great truths at first are blasphemies. So he said the blasphemous statement of every 18 months, technology, or in our case, information will double, and the cost to produce that technology will drop in half. Today, we refer to that ludicrous, obnoxious statement as Moore's Law. So if the first dysfunction of really great people, of the examples of eccentric Darwinism, is that they are nonconformist, they don't fit in, they are psychologically unemployable by conventional means, I guess the second dysfunction is, like Gordon Moore, we all suffer from delusions. Now, if you read the article, there was an example that back in June of 2000, A.G. Lafley was an executive for Procter & Gamble, and he received a very interesting phone call by the CEO. Now, at that time, the CEO of P&G was a guy by the name of John Pepper. Now, he wanted to know if Lafley thought he had what it took to assume the CEO position. Now, mind you, this is one of the largest and well-known organizations in the world. Lafley obviously accepted the challenge. And this was the opportunity of a lifetime, except for the fact that it was also a major time of transformation and shift and reorganization inside of P&G. Now, despite producing some of the most recognized name brands in the world, things such as Crest, Pampers, Tide, P&G's stock dropped 50% within the first 2 quarters of that year. That looks like a sinking ship. Now, not a lot of people want to jump forward and become the captain of a sinking ship midway down. And for a long time, P&G basically was the unchallenged, preeminent player within the marketplace. And what they believed drove that success was the philosophy that their products were preeminent and therefore vital to the company's success. And not a lot of people really wanted to challenge that dogma. Just like in today's day and age, we're told what to believe by the media. We're told what to believe by our elected officials. And nobody really wants to say, hey, you know what? I think there's trouble in paradise here. I think that I need to not accept popular thinking, but rather employ critical thinking.
Right.
See, a lot of times the last thing a society wants is a whole bunch of critical thinkers. Well, the last thing some organizations want is a bunch of free thinkers as well. But Lafley thought that the key to success lied not necessarily in product supremacy, but product should be customer-centered. In his book, The Game Changer, co-authored by another executive icon, Ram Charan, Lafley wrote that the most essential component to game-changing innovation is deeply understanding your consumer at both the rational and emotional level. This was shocking to state at a company such as P&G, and understanding a customer who purchases toothpaste at an emotional level is mind-blowing. What about our customer who's doing more than purchasing toothpaste? They're purchasing a self-concept. They're purchasing an extended higher quality of life. They're purchasing something that is so personal. There is no separation between the person and the product itself. You need a very delusional, free-thinking person who is unwilling to resign themselves to, this is just the way we do things around here.
So,
don't you?
Let me ask you a question then. So are you advocating, in a way, a healthy degree of empathy over or alongside education?
If education is not created for and driven by the marketplace, it is not only erroneous, it is in a lot of cases detrimental to the growth of the industry.
Okay,
because this industry is a commercial industry and we are driven by the market, period.
I agree.
Now, people can argue that, but I would say, you know what? You can argue the law of gravity, demonstrate how this is wrong, because if you jump out of a 20-story window, I don't care how convinced you are that you're right. Once you reach the 10th floor, you're going to be very tempted to start recalculating your hypothesis or re-examining your hypothesis.
I agree. So we're going to carry this on next week, aren't we? What are you going to talk about next week?
Next week, we're going to take a look at the other 3 key dysfunctions of all highly effective people. So we're going to take a look at what makes people really eccentric in our industry, and why is it that the weirder you are, the more you don't fit in, I believe, the more hope there is for you to really succeed. Not just financially, but intra and interpersonally.
Brilliant. Thank you, Bobby. I can't wait, actually. That has really struck a raw note with me. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jane.
And I wait in anticipation for next Friday.
Well, I'll be sat just here.
I hope so.
I won't move.
Don't.